The Amityville Horror True Story.
We're gonna have the greatest house.
It's beautiful. This is an amazing house. You are going to love it.
Holy. This is the deal of a lifetime. So, what's the catch?
There was a crime, a murder.
In the house?
Several people.
In November of 1974, Ronald DeFeo Jr. killed his entire family and inspired one of the greatest horror stories of all time, which known as the Amityville Murders. The home is located at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York, and it still stands till this day. In the early morning of November 13, 1974, 6 members of the DeFeo family were shot in their beds with a .35 caliber rifle. Ronald DeFeo Jr., the oldest son, confessed to murdering his entire family in cold blood. He had killed his mother and father, Louise and Ronald DeFeo, alongside of his siblings, whom were 18-year-old Dawn, 13-year-old Allison, 12-year-old Mark and 9-year-old Matthew. Till this day, the question still stands whether there was an evil spirit in the house causing him to kill his family or not. Ronald's childhood was nothing like other kids. His father was abusive and his mother hid in the background. Ronald Jr. started to look to alcohol and drugs. He even threatened his father with a gun once. His parents then started letting him live back at home with them, hoping it would make things better between the family and calm his anger and drinking. At age 18, he held a job at the family's auto dealer, but he never bothered to show up. On the day of the murder, Ronald Jr. left work and went to a bar. He kept calling his home and no one answered. He left the bar and returned at 6:30 a.m. when he yelled, "You got to help me. I think my mother and father are shot." Authorities showed up at the family home and found all 6 family members dead in their beds, shot with a rifle at around 3:15 a.m. and positioned on their stomachs. There was no sign of struggle or that they were drugged. There were no neighborhood reports of gunshots. Ronald Jr. changed his alibi several times, from claiming he was at the bar during the time of the murders to mob hit and Louis Fellaini killing his family while forcing Ronald Jr. to watch. He eventually confessed that he gunned his own family down and stood trial on October 14, 1975. His attorney William Weber tried to enter a plea. The prosecution argued Ronald Jr. was a drug addict who was well aware of what he was doing that night. He was convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder and sentenced to 6 concurrent sentences of 25 years to life in prison. It wasn't until the Lutz family moved into the house in December of 1975 when it all started. George and Kathy Lutz believed their purchase of the 4,000-square-foot house at $80,000 was a steal, but moved out 28 days later after terrifying incidents forced them to flee. They claimed green slime was oozing from the walls and eyes were peering into the house from outside, as well as foul odors and Kathy levitating in bed. George claimed he woke up at 3:15 a.m. every night, the exact time of death of the DeFeo family members. One of the 3 Lutz children confirmed that the hauntings did happen. However, he also said that his stepfather exaggerated the events. George Lutz was curious about paranormal activity and he tried to summon spirits, but he also had a financial motivation to sell his story to the media to the family's debt. The Amityville house sold in February 2017 to the new owner for $605,000, which was $200,000 less than the original asking price. Before this, it had been owned by 4 different owners. One of the owners had the old address changed to 108 Ocean Avenue to prevent fans to be outside their house at all hours.
Ran out of the bar and that was it. They all took off. No, I had to stay. I was tending bar. They all jumped in his car and took off.
Today, police combed the DeFeo's handsome 3-story house for clues, while divers explored the backyard swimming pool for the still unfound murder weapon. Police have been questioning the son, Ronald, and now say he is being, quote, safeguarded. Investigators say without explanation that they now feel young DeFeo was in the house at the time of the murders, but they're not yet considering him a suspect. And so forth.
We have no suspect at this time. We have no indication of the motive at this time.
What about Ronald DeFeo, the son, the surviving son?
Ronald is being safeguarded by the Suffolk County Police at this time.
Why safeguarded?
Why? Because the 6 members of the family dead, and we don't know why, and he's the sole remaining member.
Is he also a suspect?
He's not a suspect at this time.
Few people in the neighborhood knew the family well, but those who did described them as close-knit.
Well, I think they were just very sweet, very religious people, very family-minded people. And that's about all I could say. Very good, very generous, this type. Very close with their children.
There's one element in the usual mass murder story which seems to be missing from this case. There's no sense of fear in this community, no feeling of a mass murderer on the loose. People we talked to seem to feel that whatever was the motive for this crime, it had something to do with the family. It's not something that's going to return to bother anyone else. In Amityville, Long Island, Phil Barno, News Center 4.